Right, good morning, Boker
Good
Tov.
morning,
Good
Stowe.
morning.
Boker Tov.
Bokeroo.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for reminding me about.
We're going to come into an interesting Jewish discussion today. And that is one that you could translate into many other things. Whenever you have a teaching in Judaism, you can have two ways to approach it. There's the rational,
Thank you.
logical, can we turn this into something more natural? Or does it have to be supernatural, mystical? You can come up with other words to that effect. There are two teachings. One teaching, two ways to look at it. What does it really mean? I'll give you an example. The week before Parasha. You hear a story about people building a tower to fight with God. God comes, destroys the tower, disperses the people. It sounds like a nice story, but it doesn't say that in the Torah, actually. The Torah says there were a group of people, got together, they built a tower.
Is this the
Hashem-
Tower of Babel?
Yes, Hashem came down to see the tower. He didn't like what he saw, and he decided to disperse them across the globe. There are two camps that approach the story in Jewish tradition. The first camp, these were people, they came up with swords, they built a tower up to the heavens, they wanted to fight God, and God wanted to play games with them, change around their language, sent them across the world. The story, juvenile intentions by people who, not so long ago in the history, experienced the flood, realized that now they want to go up with swords and fight Hashem, and that's the story I was taught when I was a kid. Until when I looked up that story in the Torah, it doesn't say that in the Torah. Someone says a story about a tower and being dispersed around the world. There are two rabbis, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, the Ramban, not the Rambam. He is called Nachmanides. And a rabbi called Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim ibn Attar. They both say, listen, the story is very simple. These were good people. You see, they lived together, they spoke the same language, they wanted the good for each other. This is the exact opposite of the generation of the flood. These are not bad people, these are good people. But they're incorrect about what they believe God's mission is for the world. They want to all live together. Build a big building, we're all going to live together, we'll never scatter, we don't want to see the rest of the globe, we just want to stay together. Hashem comes down and says, I didn't create the world so everybody should live in one place. There's something very unnatural when you're driving through Manhattan. And in such a small place, there are so many millions of people. The world was made to be populated, to go around the globe, to be in different places. And Hashem says, listen, I would love that you are all getting along with each other, so I'm not going to destroy your relationships, but I need to find a way to send you to other parts of the globe. And so what does he do? He changes their languages, so people can go around the globe and find a place for them to live. And therefore when it says they were fighting Hashem, it doesn't mean they were fighting Hashem. Rather, they were not fulfilling the will of Hashem by creating the world. Everyone should live in the same place. Rather, they should go live around the globe. And you have two camps. One camp that believes people thought they could kill God with a sword. And another camp says there's no such story happening, but rather Hashem is teaching you a lesson that He doesn't want everyone living together. Sometimes it's better to disperse and to populate. You know where you see this? In Israel. Rarely will you go to an Arab neighborhood and find apartment buildings. Only in Jewish neighborhoods are there apartment buildings. Very simple reason. Apartment buildings are great because you're sharing the expenses of one plot of land with many other people. But then you don't take up any land. And so when it comes to, I want to hold on to my territories, how do you do that? You spread out. You don't build up, you spread out. Tel Aviv goes up.
Correct.
Other neighborhoods go out. And the reason is that I value the land. I want to have land. You want to have land. We want to make sure that we're not all stuck on a little block. We want to disperse. There's something good about Yishuv HaOlam, it's called in Hebrew. Settling, populating the world. Today you have a similar thought. There's going to be a teaching here that you could either translate as some mystical teaching or just a very simple, natural way of life. Our rabbis tell us, Le'olam yeh zahir b'chod ishto. A person should always be very careful about the honor, the dignity of his wife. Not to disrespect her, not to speak bad towards her, not to hurt her feelings, not to hurt her, God forbid, more than just her feelings. She'en bracha mitzviyah b'toch beito shel adam, because a man only receives blessings inside of his home b'shvil ishto, because of his wife. So what do we just say? A person should respect his wife, and he should know the downside of disrespecting his wife
Is he's not going to get anything.
is blessings don't come to a person who disrespects their wife. And blessings do come to a person because of his wife. So who's the blessing bringer to the home?
The wife.
The wife. This is what our rabbis are telling us.
That's why we're so important. More important than you.
Numbers,
You have
I'm
to
not
spell
going
it
to
out.
argue.
You can't, because I know.
Now, clearly our rabbis are telling us something that, in a world, especially where our rabbis wrote this teaching, you think you're the one who goes out to work, you think you're the one who's the breadwinner, you think you realize that all of this comes to you because of your wife. There are two ways to look at this teaching. Give me the mystical, Kabbalistic, spiritual approach to this teaching. How would you teach this teaching? Oh, no, once. So I'll tell you, I was once at my friend's house. And he told me this teaching and said, my wife, whatever she wants to buy, I tell her to buy. Whatever she wants to spend, because all the blessing that happens in my house is because of her. And so long as she's happy, God will make us happy. This is your mystical, spiritual way to interpret this teaching. There's some kind of...
Yeah, but somebody's got to pay. Someone's got to pay for it,
That's already a different story.
And that exactly.
The
so
way
you've
he
got to be
understood
able
this teaching was that if she's happy, God will make us happy.
God
This is
doesn't
the
God doesn't pay the
understanding
bills.
of this teaching.
Yes, he does. Right. Yes, he does.
So
What?
we have
No, he doesn't.
we have here that one way to read this teaching. And then you have hello.
Hi.
Give you a chair.
Morning, Margot.
Morning. What happened? Oh.
Are you alright?
Don't do shoulder stands when you're
Oh,
in your-
never.
when you're my age.
Never.
Shoulder stand?
I'm with you, honey.
Yeah, I did
No
them all my
shoulder
life, but I haven't been doing them continuously. So
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I didn't want
It's
to
a-
break
it's a-
up the
No, so we were worried about you. Come, have a seat. They brought you a chair. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Margot.
Yeah.
When did this happen?
Did you crack a vertebrae?
About 4 weeks ago.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
I didn't know.
Yes, there is something wrong with a few vertebrae.
So,
Yeah, that's
how
what
our
I
parents
thought.
understand this teaching a little bit differently. When we learned this teaching, for our parents, he
sorry,
taught us the
Margot.
following. Kshiyesh shalom. Are you going?
He should sleep. He wants to go back to sleep.
Should
I'll
he eat?
get my license.
Should you? I put your license on top of your wallet.
If anybody else wants a drink, we only have mugs.
Yes, he should.
And go, the keys over there to the
Should
car.
I shuckle him?
Yeah.
Just don't forget them in the car because they're different than your...
Okay.
And drive safe because we can't afford any dents on that car.
Is that a loaner car?
Yeah, loaner car. You drop off your car at the Lexus dealer, the routine checkup, and they give you a car that I could never even afford if I wanted to. So I just have to be careful with the loaner car more than I'm careful with my own car. So this is the
Relax, you're insured.
this is the dream of the Western world. You should know. You go to a hotel, they treat you like a king. You might live in some one-bedroom studio apartment that in some who knows where neighborhood, but when you're traveling, you have to stay in a hotel. So you come to a hotel, and they open the doors for you, and there are red carpets and marble floors and queen-size beds, and it's all an illusion because you don't own anything here. You're paying just for the night. Tomorrow morning you go back to your one-studio apartment. It's an interesting way of life. You lease a car that you could never buy, but you drive it around anyways. There's something about this glitz and glamour that doesn't sit so well with me. But, okay, Baruch Hashem. Kshiyesh shalom, when there's peace, says our parents. Ahava ve'achva, love. Achva is more than love. Achva is, anyone have a good English word for achva?
Caring?
Caring?
No, it's more than caring. It's
It
much more.
includes caring.
It includes it, but it's more than caring.
Achva is like a, whereas ahava might be love, achva would be a,
Or, I don't know.
it would be a relationship. It is connected to caring. It's like more than peace. It's like a love that is. There must be a good English word for this. Tranquility, not a good word.
No.
Devotion.
Yeah, that could be. Achva is like a peaceful love, like two people are really in love and they're just things are going their way.
You're calm with each other.
Yeah, this is achva. When there's peace, when there's love, when there's achva, v'ha'aracha, and there's mutual respect, ben habal v'ishto, between a husband and his wife. You see, people think that my relationship with my spouse is my business. It's true that it's your business. It is. Nobody should step in. But your relationship with other people have an effect on other people around you. People who are your friends will see an example of a relationship. Children of such a marriage will know whether or not, even if it's a subtle, they never thought about it, their parents get along with each other or not, but depending on how they see their parents treating each other, it could change the way they look at the world, change the way they look at relationships, change the way they think about marriage, change the way they think about having children. זה משפיע השפעה עמוקה לילדים וצאצאיהם לטובה, חוסן וביטחון. It has a deep effect on the children, the grandchildren, the descendants of this family when they see people who are respectful of each other, who love each other, who care for each other, who are there for each other. It affects children, it affects grandchildren for the good. Chosen u'bitachon, it gives a person confidence, a certain, not every, when I got married, so people came to share all kinds of advice for relationships. You could tell from the advice that somebody gives you what kind of relationship they're in. There were those who told me, make sure that you have separate bank accounts.
Separate bathing?
Bank accounts. I have a little bit of a cold, I'm sorry.
Separate bank
Bank
account.
Oh, bank accounts.
Yes.
Oh, my
Now-
God.
Listen, for a guy who's waiting a few minutes till his wedding canopy, the last thing in your mind is separate bank accounts because she might walk away with all your money. Well, if I thought that about her, I probably would have
You
married
wouldn't
her.
have married her.
But he probably was in a relationship where somebody walked out with all of his money. So that's why he's sharing this word of advice to me. And then there are those who
That's
tell you...
not necessarily true.
And
You can have separate bank accounts because you really want your wife to have her own domain where she can spend something and the husband doesn't need to know about it or whatever.
For all
So if you-
transparent purposes, my wife and I have separate bank accounts. The reason is, we never had the time to go and merge bank accounts, and she has her own last name because I don't know how to change her last name. So when we get our act together and do some of those things, we'll do them. But for right now, I'm not preaching to anybody a good or a bad thing. But you could okay. So
Oh,
you're saying
that's
there's a
true.
positive
No,
way reason.
I think, for example, that my son and my daughter-in-law, my son said, no, have your own bank account.
Because?
Because I don't want you to feel that you have, I'm not sure, I never sat down and asked them, but because why shouldn't you have, you have a job, you're earning, why should it always go through, as covered to his wife?
Okay, maybe he wants to give her own independence, own freedom.
Yeah,
What a lot of people
just
do
so-
nowadays is you've got a bank account, your wife has a bank account, and then
you
you make, and then you have a joint
joint,
account.
That's
And
right.
then you have an agreement. Each month, each of us will put X
X
or
amount
you'll
of
put
money
X
into
amount
the
in,
account.
She'll put it, and this is the from this account is when we do our joint things.
Right.
And what you have in here, you buy your books, however many you want. You don't have to say anything to anyone, and she could go buy her schmatzes on her head and her dresses and everything else she wants. She doesn't have to
So,
ask
do
you.
you want-
Because there's
You
a
want-
lot of
Yeah, a lot of people
money
do
is,
that.
has
They do.
so many
Yeah.
arguments go around money, and they
Yeah.
say you want new
Yeah.
shit
whatever
and
works
so
for a
on, but
couple.
I want.
So my
both.
house is very easy. I don't make any money. So my wife, whenever I go shopping, say, "Can I take your debit card?" I take her card with me. That's always how it works in this house. But she's the primary breadwinner. For every couple, this is gonna be. I didn't mean to.
It's going to be different, but
I don't think that you have to have a joint or separate.
No.
The place that this person was coming from, when they told me, was a place of be careful. It was
I
a
have
be
a
careful
question.
comment.
I have a question.
Yes.
When my daughter got married in Israel, she had to take her husband's name, and everything had to be done before the wedding, so that the rabbi gave her back her Tedlat Zehut and everything with her new name on it, with the new number.
I don't know when she got married, but
I'll tell you when she got
I
married.
definitely have aunts in Israel that didn't take on their husband's name because of all kinds of other ideals and values.
It's
I
interesting.
don't think it's a law that you have to. I know that the easiest time to change your last name is when you get married. It seems to be that attached to your marriage certificate there are paper that just automatically do such things.
Yes.
Our problem was very different. To change our names here wouldn't automatically change our names in Israel.
No.
And that means that all your passports have to change over all her
Correct.
paperwork in Israel. And for us to do that, we'd have to either go to Israel or go to the consulate in LA. And because we knew that we might not get our act together to do all of that, we just decided to wait until we had time to do that. But it's not a legal requirement for a husband and a wife to share a last name.
No, it's definitely not. Many women like to keep their own name. They
So-
like their name. And many women who are married have their own name. They never change their name.
So, like I said, these are. You'll see by people that are in a good or a bad relationship. Sometimes my brother, the people that always tell jokes about how much they're suffering in a relationship.
Mhm.
You can tell by how people laugh if they thought it was funny or it's like, oh, how'd you know? And there are times in a person's life where we must realize that the relationships that we have, not just with our spouse, with other people, they affect the other people that are around us. They affect our friends. I don't know, maybe some of you have such relationships where it's a few couples that are friends with each other. And when one of those couples are having issues, and it's apparent to the other couples, things get awkward sometimes. That dinner party that you planned, and all of a sudden only one of them showed up, or the other one shows up but sitting on the other side of the room, or
Yeah. When I was separated in Monterrey, some friends called me and they said, please do not take it as offensive, but some of us are not going to invite you anymore because it's awkward just to invite mainly the female, right, the woman.
that was their problem?
Well, no, because they were friends before. So
Oh, interesting. So this is a...
and this was not in a bad way. It was for me not to feel bad.
Slighted.
Yeah, because I mean I was included in whatever, okay, but there were situations, and not this person in particular. Actually, this person in particular, they always included me, but he was justifying other people that if I wouldn't be invited anymore, if we would go out with couples and things
Interesting.
like that.
So my Rabbi Rosenbaum was here in San Diego, so I was able to watch him interact with his wife. And being able to see him interact with his wife really helped my wife and I a lot. And sort of, you learn certain things, you see certain things, you're able to look up to somebody about certain things. It would be very difficult for me to have a rabbi or a teacher who was in a relationship with his wife that was so different than mine that I wouldn't be able to understand it. How can I call somebody for advice if they're on a whole different playing field? And our relationships have effects on other people. And we have to know that. Our parent says that when our rabbis tell us that the blessing in a person's home is dependent on the way he treats his wife, the way he's understanding this teaching is that it's a very simple, the dynamic in the home affects the children, it affects the grandchildren, it affects the nieces and nephews, it affects, there might be kids that are going to come out of a relationship, I want to get married. Some kids are going to come, I saw the way my father was treated, I never want to get married. What it means is the blessing will come to your home. It really does. It has to do with the way a person treats the other one. He adds in at the end of the sentence though, V'kabbalat shefa ma'Hashem yitbarach. There also is a mystical aspect to this, of a certain outpouring of blessing that does come from a divine place, because of the way that a couple treats themselves. I think it's true. I think in general, when you're doing something right, you'll find blessing comes your way a lot more often than when you're trying to do something wrong. When we started our new community, I reached out to our parents. I said, Rabbi, how do I know? It's easy to start something new. Everybody can do that. You can do it too. You know, to get a new business in California, you just have to spend 15 minutes downtown. You can sign up for a new business. How do you know that what you're doing is right, though?
You don't know at the time. You're hoping amongst hopes that it's right. And if you go into it with the right attitude and the right mindset, it's going to work. But if you're going into it thinking it's going to be a failure, it will be a failure.
Well, what if you go into it knowing that it will be good, but the reasons that you're doing it are bad?
Oh.
For example, there are many people who will make something that seemingly seems good. They'll build a new synagogue, but it comes from a place of hate, not from a place of wanting to give more, from a place of... Our parents said that you'll find that when things work out for you well, when Hashem seems to manage your path, that things fall into place properly, those are little kisses from Hashem, little signs from Hashem that, oh yeah, okay, it was a good decision, it was a good approach, it was something that was necessary. I cannot tell you how many times in life I had an idea, something I wanted to put into action, but I didn't get a chance until something just worked out. And then once that something worked out, everything else flowed afterwards.
Cool.
And in life, you'll see that sometimes adversity also shows up, and it's meant to test you to see how is it really worth your while. But very often you'll find that good things, when you intend to do good, things work out for you. And there are many people who think that what they're doing is good, but what they're doing is really harmful. We're able to rationalize a lot of things in our heads. A lot of things that might be bad, we'll rationalize for the good. Rarely have I found that fighting with another person, even if you think it's for the good, is successful. Because even if you think it's for a good reason, you're doing something bad, and rarely have I found that you get some kind of siyata deshmaya, some kind of heavenly clarity to fight with somebody else. It doesn't work. You ever wonder when two people declare jihad on each other? When the Iraq-Iran war, both sides were declaring jihad on each other. God is going to fight with us. I'm sad to say that Hashem normally doesn't take up the fight when you fight with people. It's just not the way. It's not the way that the divine providence works. For bad things, you're gonna have to do it on your own. For good things work that way. Everyone's so quiet today. What's the...
No, I'm
It's hard to know sometimes though when there are obstacles, and there are always obstacles. Does that mean it wasn't a good venture, or does it just mean, it's an obstacle?
Obstacles are there are put in your way to see how you're going to overcome them.
Right.
But
So, but at what point do you know? Well, no, I think
It's a
that
good
was
question.
the wrong way.
At what point do you know if it's an obstacle to test you, or is it a sign like, don't do this, it's not a good idea?
So I know a woman who is starting something in the natural products domain. That's a domain I spent many years in and know a lot about. So she contacted me and told me everything that she's doing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I gave her some contacts. But as I was listening to her, I was thinking to myself,
It's not going to work.
not going to work. This is okay. And every time I speak to her, she happens to be a host family also, so I speak to her every month. Every time I speak to her, she tells me how she's moving through, struggling through, efforting through, and she really wants this to work. And I think
Why
to myself,
didn't you say something to her?
well, I told her in the beginning, I think this is, it's not something I see. It's a whole new concept, a whole completely different
Within the
concept.
concept of natural.
Yeah, but a completely different concept than anything I did in that industry. But I know that industry, and I'm credentialed in that industry. So I think to myself, every time I speak to her, I think to myself, at what point is she going to say,
I'm forcing a hand that doesn't need to be forced.
forcing a hand that's not going to...
When you keep putting in and you're getting nothing
I just
out.
spoke to her the other day, which was fresh in my head.
So that's interesting, by the way.
It is an
You're,
interesting...
you're kind of answering Tamar's question, you should know. Which is, there's a book called Shaar Teshuvah. Shaar Teshuvah was written by Rabbi Yonah of Garandi. Rabbi Yonah was a Rishon, he was a medieval Jewish sage, who was one of the most vocal opponents of Maimonides, of the Rambam. He was responsible for causing the Rambam's works to be burned publicly.
Really?
The Rambam was up against a lot of
Adversity.
adversity and opposition. At a certain point, he realized that what he did was wrong. And he wanted to make amends with Maimonides, but the Rambam had already passed away. So he forced himself into exile. This was a common medieval Jewish practice. Not something we do today, but to not live in one place, to kind of be homeless for a year, for 2 years, to be transient from here to there, to make yourself uncomfortable, to atone for sins. And he wrote a book. Now this book is a book on how to do teshuvah, how to make amends. And it's quite meaningful.
How he did it.
How any person throughout the generation, his tips on how to do teshuvah. From a person who felt like he really needed to do teshuvah, it has a certain personal touch to it that other books don't have. He clearly viewed himself as a person who needed to do teshuvah. In there he writes that he has a tradition from his teachers that if you try to do something 3 times and it doesn't work out, 3 times is a test. After that, it's already a sign of don't try it anymore. Give up. Go somewhere else. Try a different avenue. Go through a different road. Try a different channel. This isn't the way that it's going to come from. And that could be like what you're saying. I mean, the first time it's an obstacle. The second time it's also a test. If that becomes the norm, that you're always running into brick walls, you might be going in the wrong direction. You might have to find another avenue which can let you do things smoother. But this is a dangerous field. The reason is, you can never know what Hashem's trying to pass off to you. Somebody once asked Rabbi Shlomo Aviner from Israel. He said, well, there was a certain thing that happened to me. Is it a sign from above? He said, everything is a sign from above. The problem is that you're not a prophet. So how would you expect to understand what's a sign and what is it supposed to mean? So don't get yourself all worked up if you see a sign that from above. Everything's a sign. It doesn't have to be something that you know how to interpret. Sometimes you have to just do also what your instincts tell you, what your logic, what your experience has told you to do. And those are valuable tools in any person's life.
But the thing with that is, like you said, well, why didn't you tell her? There are people I've observed, I'm sure we've all known them, they failed, they stuck with it, bingo!
Right.
So you don't want to be the one that throws cold water on someone else's passionate dream.
Yeah, but
it's another thing to give them good counsel. Do you know what I'm saying? If they ask for it, to give good counsel.
Right. I mean, you
point
can
in the
say
right
example,
direction.
yeah, right.
But I think at some point they know when it's fruitless.
Well, it's their dream. It's
but maybe even then they say, why should I give up? Maybe next time. Maybe if I try this way.
Yeah,
maybe
but
if
there's
I do it
enough.
that way.
I was very successful in recruiting for about 20 some odd years. In 2009, it started. Every single deal that I worked on fell apart for the most ridiculous of reasons. One attorney's wife didn't want him to leave the firm because her best friend was there. Another deal, this firm was going to hire two partners that I was working with, and they were excited. At the 11th hour, they had hired someone new in New York who decided, I don't want intellectual property attorneys in California. I mean, but I had one firm who wanted 10 attorneys. I found them 10 attorneys. Every single one of them fell out. And
what did you walk away with thinking?
I'm going to keep trying. And then I finally, from 2010 to 2013, I finally said, that's it. I guess I'm not supposed to be recruiting anymore.
And what did you do next?
I started writing.
So
it's different for everybody.
That's why
I said I don't think you can make a rule.
Can't make a rule.
You can't.
Albert Einstein tried to get into many universities and it didn't work out for him until he made something work. And you know, it would have been a lost mind if we would have lost a person like Albert
Yeah,
Einstein.
I mean,
but
there are
that's,
people that want to go to medical school and they apply to 25 medical schools. They get
Absolutely.
rejected from 25 medical schools.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, nope, I'm not going to be an acupuncturist. I'm going to go to medical school. They put in 3 more apps and the last one accepts them
and I think
somewhere.
this is also important to know.
Yeah,
We have to differentiate between obstacles and failures. And Judaism doesn't view failure as a bad thing. When you fail, it doesn't mean you messed up completely. It means that you learned. Well,
I have a very funny
Yeah.
story to tell about Einstein. This happened in Germany many, many years ago. My father-in-law's one of his best friends, her name was Ruth. She wanted to be an OBGYN. So she wanted to be a psychiatrist, but in those days she couldn't, so she ended up being an OBGYN. She was having lunch with my father-in-law's first cousin, who's very famous, who invented part of the X-ray machine. And the two of them were having lunch with Albert Einstein. And this is a true story. And the bill came, and Einstein gave it to Ruth and said, I can't figure it out, you divide it.
it's fun.
That's a true story.
Yeah, everyone's got
Ruth's
their.
now.
Of course,
yeah.
absolutely.
Look,
So-
my
Yeah.
no, this
No,
is not
tell us.
Einstein. Sorry, my uncle was Einstein's assistant,
Uh-huh.
and he was a mathematician. And
Maybe they knew each other.
yeah,
Maybe
they
they did.
worked. I mean, and he said Einstein was very good at concepts and physics, but math.
Yeah,
He
so-
corrected his
So when he
math.
gave it to Ruth and he said, you figure it out, I can't, it's funny. And my father-in-law's cousin, who they were sitting with, he sponsored Einstein to come to America. And it's documented with Smithsonian.
You should know that in general, when people are exceptionally brilliant in a certain field, it's like anything else in the world.
They used to
If you shine a flashlight on this wall, there will be light in the room, but that will be that wall will be dark. That's
Yes.
how it's gonna work. And Hava Perez, brilliant scholar, remembers every piece of Torah he ever learned. If you ask him for his phone number, he can't tell you.
Right.
He just you ask him to count change. He
I know
needs your
that.
help to count change. And it's not we never saw it as a flaw. We didn't really go to him to study phone numbers. We went to study Torah. So, but it's a normal thing. If you the
Everybody has
sad
something.
thing about our world is there are only certain disciplines which are appreciated.
Right.
For example, the one who's terrible at physics might actually be brilliant in another field that the world, for example, artists, for example.
I hope his
I don't know
wife
that-
can count change,
Yeah,
because she goes with him on Thursdays to do the shopping.
So of course, the world only appreciates certain talents and certain capabilities, and just because someone's not doing so well in one field doesn't mean that they're not brilliant in another one. That's
You know,
important to know.
they say that people who are very creative are terrible spellers for the most part.
Interesting. Why? Go figure.
Go figure.
Okay.
Because they're creative, they're not looking at rules.
Right? They think in different terms.
So in Judaism, for example, I was talking about failure. Failure is a positive thing. It says, Sheva yipol tzadik v'kam. A righteous person will fall 7 times, and they'll get up. And so the famous Hasidic master says, what's the difference between a righteous person and an evil person? And both of them fall. What's the difference? He said, well, one gets up and one doesn't get up. You see, when you fall and you fail, some people say, oh, I'm just a failure. I'm going to stay in my rut. I did something bad. It's not worth trying to become a better person again. The difference, everybody does something bad. You're not going to find a righteous person who's always righteous. King David says, "En tzaddik ba'al tzadjat tov v'lo yichta." Every righteous
Absolutely.
person in the world has sinned somewhere along the line, has failed somewhere along the line, has done something. The difference is that they had the resolve to get back up again and make them. I'm not defined by my failures, I'm defined by my successes. The evil person says, you know what? I really messed up, so I might as well just keep messing up for the rest of my life. I might as well stay that misfit, stay that bad person. And that's the mistake. The mistake is to think of yourself as a failure. The things that you try in life, you try one career, it didn't work out, you try one relationship, it didn't work out, it doesn't define who you are in a relationship or who you are in a career. Sometimes it just happened to be that was the failure, and you did your best, but it just wasn't supposed to be that way. And that's why it's very important here. Like you're pointing out, failures don't always tell you stop. They just say try again in a different way. Try again with a different strategy. Try again. And if you mention Albert Einstein, you can't believe all the quotes that you see. You know, they say that Abraham Lincoln once said that you cannot rely on quotes that are found on the internet. This is
Let's.
This is the you never know
Omnipresent.
who
Omnipresent.
you never know who actually said the things that are attributed to them. But they say that Albert Einstein said that the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again but achieve different results. That's the truth. So you have to change your strategy, change your plan. You might want to accomplish the same thing but in a different way. I'm not here to take away anybody's desire to succeed. To the contrary, just try in a different fashion. There's another part of being in a relationship. And this part is connected to a biblical commandment found in the Torah, in the book of Vayikra. The Torah says,
In the book of
Vayikra.
Vayikra. Okay.
Vayikra.
Vayikra. Okay.
That one. V'lo tonu ish et amito, v'yareh ta'am Elohecha. We studied this together back in the beginning of the Monday class, when we were still using handouts on relationships. And do not cause distress to another person. This is a biblical prohibition. Don't cause someone to suffer for no reason. Not physically, emotionally. A classic example of lo tonu. Sometimes children, you could scare them easily. You could, with very simple words, you could scare a child. You can make a child nervous. Also with adults. There are adults like that too, but a person be very careful with the things that you say. You promise someone to do something, then you didn't do it. A child, for example, you promise that you're going to take them somewhere. If they're good, they were good and you didn't take them somewhere. Aside from being a liar, you also caused unnecessary distress to another person. You hire a worker for a day, and you don't pay them at the end of the day.
Oh.
You say, I'm going to have to pay you in 2 weeks. But I did my work today. I spent my morning till nighttime here. Causing that kind of person distress it's a prohibition. How can you do that to somebody else? Small things that you might think are funny. Standing behind a door and go boom to somebody and you scare them. And you know that they get scared from such things. That's a biblical prohibition of lo tanu. Why did you do that? Teachers can oftentimes cause distress to their students. There's a classic example found in rabbinic literature. Let's say there's a student who always leaves his cell phone on his desk. And you tell me, if you leave it there, one day someone might steal it from you. And so one day, he happened to put his phone on the desk, and you walk by as a teacher, and you slip it in your pocket. And where's my phone? And then he starts flipping over the tables, looking at his backpack, and then he says, see, I just wanted to teach you a lesson about not leaving your phone out. Parents might do this sometimes too. It's a biblical prohibition of lo tonu ish et
That's
amito.
not nice.
It's
not
not
a
the
nice
proper
thing to
way
do.
to educate another person by distressing them, by scaring them, by threatening them. In my line of work, this translates also to the way you teach Torah. There are some people, I don't know how they've infiltrated the Jewish community. I can't tell you. I've spoken about them before here, so I'm not worried about your stance on this. There are rabbis and preachers who have studied more from Southern Baptist preachers than they studied from rabbis in Jerusalem. They speak about fires and hell and devils and you're going to die and come back and reincarnations and all kinds of wonderful little snippets of wisdom that they have to share with the world. And these people cause unnecessary distress to other people also. It's a problem. It's not the way we are taught to educate other people. Even if what they were saying was true, it's not. But even if what they were saying was true, it would be prohibited to share such things to another person to cause them unnecessary harm. If a person is in the kind of field where you have to share bad news with people, anybody has to go through training in how you then share bad news with a person. Sometimes you don't do it alone. Sometimes you send a social worker with you to do this kind of things. Because you don't want to be that person who breaks the bad news. Someone, God forbid, has a heart attack from the bad news because we just told them the things. We just said it was the way. We just said it the way it is, right? That's what people say. But not always is that the way that you tell people things. In a relationship, the probability of causing another person distress is much higher than anywhere else in the world. The chances of you causing distress to the person behind you in the line in the grocery store is not as much as to the person you're married to. There's the person you're sharing a life with. Amu Chazal and rabbis tell us, Zon at Dvarim. Hashem was specifically warning us against causing distress or harm to another person with our mouth. Don't beat each other up. That's obvious, right? Don't smack each other when you're angry. That's obvious. Also, don't hurt each other with your words. Mitzvah kol echad misrael ish ve'isha. It's an obligation on every person, man or woman. Shelo l'tze'er shum echad misrael ish ve'isha katan u'ktana. We can't harm any human being, man or woman, adult or a child. There's no, I'm a teacher, I'm a parent, I could do this to them because they're still young, they need to learn a lesson. B'shum devar mitzaer, we can't do anything which distresses them. Mach'iv, hurts them. Mavhil, which frightens them. Mafchid, which scares them. Maknit, which degrades them. Mivayesh, which could humiliate them. I'll never forget that I was once visiting the school, and the principal came in and called out a kid from the classroom, not at school in San Diego, and told him that he had to leave because his parents hadn't paid tuition that month. And they escorted the kid out of the classroom.
That is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me share with you. I'm sure that schools have their own. When I spoke about this once at a conference with teachers got very defensive towards me. Well, what do you do? These parents, they drive a fancy car, they go on vacation in the Bahamas, but they won't pay tuition. How else do you want us to enforce the tuition policy on parents? I can tell you, I don't know how else you could do it. In my opinion, a child shouldn't know what or if his parents are paying or not paying.
I agree.
If a child is on a scholarship, there's no reason for a child to be
Nobody
treated
should know
any differently.
about
Nobody should know, especially not their classmates shouldn't know about it.
Exactly.
And if this is not the standard operating procedure in a world of education, then we've messed up entirely.
There was just an incident in the news last week where children were putting on a play. And a little autistic child wanted to come up to the microphone, took the microphone to say gobble gobble, and the teacher grabbed it away from him in front of all the class and the parents. And she humiliated this little boy who's 5 or 6 who's autistic.
His autism.
And it was the most horrifying thing to see this little child crying. It was like, what's wrong with this teacher? What's going on? Why humiliate a little boy like that?
So I don't know that we always think through that our actions could be so. There are things that are blatantly, obviously humiliating.
That was horrible.
Sure, of course. So demands from us to think a lot. Hashem demands from us to think a lot. There's no going life just going through the motions. But we could say something in front of another person that could really hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
You have this issue all across the board. It's not just with finances, it's about the way a person looks, it's the ethnic background of a person, it's the color of their skin, it's I'll give you an example. People sometimes pick up my son, Avinoam. Oh, he looks so Sephardic. You should know. I've never in my life picked up a baby and said, oh, he looks so Ashkenazi. Never in my life have I said such a statement. You should know. But in the event that people do say such stupid things, it doesn't bother me. But I do have a family member who was bullied in their lifetime for being Sephardic. And sometimes when they see their it's a cousin, so they see their cousin being picked up, oh, he looks so Sephardic. What to me is just a silly comment, to them is a whole world of bullying and abuse, and then it doesn't go through my mind, but it goes through their mind. There are some things just not. Why would you have to? Someone came to my Shabbat table. Can't control the things that people say at my Shabbat table.
No,
Sometimes it's difficult for me. But there was a person who was telling a story. It was like it wasn't a true story. It was just a story. And out of the dark came these 2 scary, frightening-looking black guys. My friends, you're talking about burglars or robbers or muggers. You already said scary. You already said frightening. To throw in and then you're gonna throw in black guys, and there's somebody at my table who happens to be black.
Oh, how insensitive.
And this person's, but you're different. That was how they covered up their... Do you know what this comes out to feel? You're sitting in your chair and you're dying of embarrassment that this person lives in the same generation as you.
Right.
But this is a normal story, and it doesn't just go.
It's gonna get worse. Welcome to the new America.
Sometimes you have these situations.
Oh, I didn't know you. Oh, you're different.
How many times do people tell you things about Jews? Okay, you're not the same.
But it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there, done that too many times in my life.
Listen, this kind of attitude is just forget racism, forget ethnicities, forget we're talking here the very simple human nature of do not hurt another person. Don't distress. Don't embarrass another person. Don't put another person on. I had a lady come to my house 6 months ago. It was her first time coming to Shabbat dinner in 15 years. How did my wife get her to Shabbat dinner? She said she once went to Shabbat dinner. And the rabbi said, we're not going to serve the main course unless you say Dvar Torah.
Oh.
Now this person doesn't know what the word Dvar Torah even meant. But they should know anything. But what kind of... And so she's sitting in a room. It's her first time at a Shabbat dinner ever. She's put on the spot. She says, I'm sorry, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know what to share. Oh, we can wait. And she's never going to go back to a Shabbat dinner again. And so my wife bumped into her somewhere in a... She bumped into her and said, come to our house. You won't have to share Dvar Torah. She actually came to our house and she's been back since. It's the only house she'll ever go to for any kind of holiday or a Shabbat.
So there's somehow that we know that's happened to her, because if not she wouldn't tell her.
Very good. What did I learn from that though? I learned that when we go around the table at my Shabbat meals, if there's somebody who's uncomfortable, to actually just
Go
let
by.
it slide.
Go by.
You know, now I regularly let things slide, but you never realize what kind of pressure you can put a person under
That's right.
when you don't know. So here is a big, we're talking about kosher. Half the things we do in kosher are rabbinic prohibitions. We're talking about the laws of wearing a kippah. Kippah is a rabbinic commandment. Tzitzit, it's a rabbinic commandment. And putting the mezuzah in your door, fine, it's biblical. But kissing the mezuzah, it's not even a thing. It's not even a rabbinic commandment. Not causing another person unnecessary distress, feelings, emotions. This is a biblical commandment. This is a big deal. And we're not careful enough about it. All of us, we're not careful enough about it. Inside of a relationship, v'avon zeh, v'afilu beremez is what it says. You're not even allowed to hint at a thing that might embarrass somebody. Sometimes you say something that only you and the other person understand. It's an inside joke, but you bring up an embarrassing point about a person. That's not the right way. It's a bad thing.
I think most people who try to embarrass somebody is because they're annoyed with them about something or something.
No, I don't think so. I think that something's up within themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's something
That
they
they
feel
have to put
inferior.
other
I feel they
people
feel
down.
inferior in some things. So
They have to put other people down to elevate themselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that could be.
I think it's tricky.
I
Because,
agree with you.
when you're with people you know very well, right? You can joke with them
Yeah.
about their particular foibles, and they can joke right back with
Right.
your foibles,
Right.
et cetera, and
Right.
everyone's laughing, and it's
And then once you
and
say
it's
it,
fine. Do you know what I'm saying? But for some other people, when you open up that way, you know what I'm saying? They take offense. So
Correct.
you have to know your people. You have
That's
to know who
exactly
you're
right.
close enough with
That's right.
to
be able to say something.
to exactly.
And most times when that happens, I think that the person does it because they really mean that they want to help. But the other person doesn't take it.
Can there be times where you do this to a person and your intentions may have actually been positive and not intentional to hurt
Yes.
them?
Yes.
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 So
Absolutely.
obviously
Yes.
there are people who bully other people because it's an
That's
issue
a
inside
thing.
of them. But there are also people who say they're just very insensitive when they speak in general. They say things that are
Right.
Or sometimes for you is not something that's going
Right.
to hurt or
Hurt
humiliate the other person
Right,
or
you
make
don't
the other
think
person
about
feel
it.
bad. On the contrary, you think you want to help them, and
That's
it
right.
turns out the opposite.
Exactly.
And it
Right,
becomes
exactly.
you
You know, I always
You know, you
say
do it with
about
best
bullying.
intentions. And it
I
becomes
was with the au
overwhelming.
pairs recently. I come all from different countries all over the world. I asked them, do you have bullying in your countries? Oh yeah, they didn't even hesitate. Oh yeah, amongst the kids. So they say we know what to look for when we're taking care of kids now because we're taught back at home what to do with bullying. That surprised me. I thought for some reason bullying was like an American.
American
No,
thing.
I think it's
No,
I think it's all
no.
over the world.
I think it's a human. It's a human.
Well, it is a
thing.
human
It
condition.
just
To
surprised me
elevate
for some
yourself and
reason.
to make
you
other
know?
people feel bad and small.
I'll tell you what's incredible though about the world that we live in, which is bullying among children is very dangerous.
I agree.
But I don't know. Children do things because they learn from other people. Children bully, and we hope that when they grow up they'll stop.
No, they copy
But
their
we've
parents.
allowed ourselves to live in a society where even
Not all the
adults
time.
bully. Where even adults are,
Yeah,
if
adults
it's
bully people. They
if it's
do.
bullying friends, if it's bullying people because of their, for example,
President.
imagine if you were, how many times have you seen a person in a manager position, a boss of a company, a CEO, or even just someone lower down? They're not even the boss. They just run this store.
Supervisor.
The way that they speak to other people, the way that they scream at their employees, the way that they,
Horrible.
this is no different form of bullying than in school. In fact, it might be worse.
It is.
Their whole livelihood is dependent on a person who abuses them. And sometimes a person can't even get out of that situation because they can't afford to get out of that situation.
Now there's a big story in the news about the sexual harassment with Fox News people. And it's
Yeah, that
Megyn
Roger
Kelly.
Ailes.
Roger
He
Ailes
was
is
terrible.
head of Fox News.
He's not head of Fox News
No,
anymore.
he was
He's out.
fired, but Megan Kelly
Yeah.
wrote a big book and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
did,
yeah.
I'll give an example of,
Don't settle
of
for
distress
less.
that people might think is not such a bad thing. And I'm still struggling if I agree with it. I have a book on my shelf that I got from one of a big rabbi of this generation. And I was reading one of his letters. And he was talking about a guy who, his children wanted him to buy something, he didn't have the money to buy it. A toy, I don't know, Hanukkah was coming around, whatever it was. And he said you have to be very careful how you tell your child why you cannot buy them something. And his feeling was, his advice was not to tell a child, we can't afford it. Not out of this ideal to lie to your children, but your spouse, you could say, there's something we probably can't afford. Because your spouse is a spender like you, they might earn like you, they're a person you discuss finances with. If you needed more money, both of you are responsible for finding a way to make an income. A child, the only thing he can walk away with, I can't afford something, there's no way that he could afford it. He can go get a job, he can go bring some money in, he's not going to go collecting in the streets. You're putting a child in a situation that there's nothing in the world they can do about. And he felt that putting a person in a situation that they cannot help is a very distressing thing. You can cause a child to feel a lot of anxiety, to feel depressed, to feel lesser than his peers. And there's nothing they can do about it. See, an adult can do something about it, but this child cannot. There's such a thing brought in the laws of for example, if you're going to embarrass somebody in public, there are degrees of embarrassing a person in public. Let's say one embarrasses a person in public for having a deformity. Something they didn't choose. This is a way they were born, or it's something that happened to them, God forbid, after an accident. There's nothing they can do about it. It's different than calling somebody stupid in public. Because I know that I'm not stupid. I'm more intelligent than you. I don't call people stupid in public. Yes, you did hurt me in front of other people, but that's different than hurting me about something that's true, and I can't do anything about it. You make fun of somebody because of their skin color. Because their hair color. Now today people are already changing on their hair colors. I don't know anymore really who has what hair color in the first place. But you're hurting somebody about something they cannot change.
Colors.
When you're in a relationship with somebody else, there are certain things that have hope to be fixed. Those things are worth having a conversation about how to fix them. There are some things, this is the way that a person is. This is something that they're going to be doing. You want to have a conversation about it? Fine. But to cause the other person to feel like there's something about them that they can't help, that you will never accept about them, could cause an endless amount of suffering on another person's end, and for what? It's not like that suffering is going to change something. It's just going to cause the person to be hurt, and it's going to be on my back. Why? Why would I want to do such a thing?
Yeah, but it's just tricky, like you said, in a way, when you actually don't mean to hurt the other person, but it just turns out that the other person is hurt.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was maybe a joke or, something harmless, something you thought was
That's
totally
right.
harmless. And
But you would think
Or maybe
nothing
you
of.
want to do it as an advice. Maybe you want to help them, and the way the other person takes it is
as an
or
insult.
it's as an insult. And so, what does the rabbi say about telling a child who cannot afford something?
It's better to say that we're just not going to buy it this month, or maybe we'll wait for your birthday, or just to be fair, Mom and I don't think that this is the toy that we want to bring to our house. Or to say something that will sit well with the child, but not cause them unnecessary emotional distress. In yeshiva, our rabbis were very particular about this, in a very extreme way. It's something that I haven't seen replicated, even in the other yeshivas that I went to. When I went to yeshiva in Baltimore, we had a rabbi who, the principal was I spoke to him about Rabbi Telly.
Yes.
He was a very straightforward guy. One of his rules was that it doesn't make a difference. You come from a rich home, you come from a poor home. I want the boys to be the same, as much as he can. The way that people, listen, you live in a place where everybody's wearing white shirts and black pants, there's not a lot of room to stick out when it comes to clothing. You should know. It's pretty tricky. Your socks might have a different color. There's nothing really that you're going to show off. So you have people who buy brand name shirts with a little crocodile on it, or a little horse on it, or they get some kind of pants that got a little tag on the belt. His rule was, if your parents want to buy you very expensive clothing, that's fine. I can't tell them not to. But it cannot have any external markings on the clothing that will make a child who doesn't come from that kind of home know that what you're wearing is. If you're telling me it's better quality, your parents only want to buy you good quality clothes, fine. So buy one without a horse on it. I don't know what the brands are. Buy one without a crocodile.
I agree with you.
Because that way, when the other one whose parents bought him clothes from who knows where, they both look like a white shirt.
That's why I like uniforms in school.
It's
I
very, you should know. This is
I
very,
do.
what this did for some of my
But
friends.
you know what happens, Rabbi? It
I'm
seems to
listening.
me that whatever you're exposed to, like you were exposed to this wonderful teaching, and you've emerged and you're teaching it out. Maybe your children were exposed to another good teaching, but it's different than this teaching.
Sure.
I'm saying it so, and now they grow up and they raise their kids and they do something different. So there's no one way is the right way.
Very good.
You know, I mean, they're really good parents that, they try to do everything right for the kids, but, now they got to be out of the house. They got to get into the car, and the kid is begging to buy this toy, and finally you just hear them come, sorry, you can't have that toy. They don't mean, they're not thinking, oh my God, I'm going to ruin him for life. The kid's going to have a bad whatever because I didn't say something nice and kind to my 7-year-old that he can't have that toy. They're thinking, I'm late, we got to get out of here. No, you're not going to get that toy. So they're not a bad person because they do that.
I didn't say that everyone's a bad person.
I
don't think we're talking about a one-off
no,
event anyways.
no.
I think we're talking about it's a general approach to life. There are some kids, you should know, my wife grew up 13 siblings in the house. And I can tell you that finances were not well. They were okay. They covered both parents worked, and they weren't the wealthy guys on the block. You ask my wife though, she grew up the richest kid in the world. Mm-hmm. She had no idea. And only when you get older and you actually hear, oh, those people are this and this, she didn't know. She had no other way to find out. And there's something to be said about that and the kid who grows up in a house where he feels like
Everything's owed to him.
everything is
Taking care.
either everything is owed to him from that extreme, or the other thing is the kid feels like he doesn't even have food in his lunchbox to bring to school. We're not talking about one time I had to rush to work, and I don't think anybody gets ruined from this one time running out of Target because they're late. It's an approach. It's an approach to the world. It's also an approach to a relationship. Our rabbis tell us that a person suffering, they would rather be stolen from than to be embarrassed, to be hurt. They say, "Onat dvarim gdola ve'onat mamon." It's so much so that the rabbis say that a person who was hurt, verbally, emotionally, psychologically, they actually have a power that anything that they ask for gets answered. Hashem specifically brings close people like that. You find that there's a certain bird in the world. Our rabbis observe that Hashem must take care of this bird closer than everybody else. I think in English you would call it I don't know if it's a crow, it's a raven, it's a blackbird that lays eggs, hatches the eggs, and leaves it, and abandons its children.
Yes.
And our rabbis say that this bird has extra protection from Shamayim because it's so distressed that who's going to take care of it if not for Hashem? Now, I don't know if actually these birds, I don't know how it works, but in our real life, you'll find that there are certain people that they're being humiliated, but they come out that the things that they try and work for them because Hashem takes care of people. Our spouses also. Our rabbis say that our spouse, if we cause them distress and they cry, that Hashem answers them back also, just as quickly as He answers back another person who's embarrassed. And you never want to be on the end of a person who we just caused pain to, and then all of a sudden we get it on our head. And like we said, the relationship in our home has an effect. If I hurt him, if I hurt her, it comes back to me also. If you want to view this as some mystical fashion, or just as a practical way. You can't hurt another person and expect that tomorrow morning everything's going to be all nice and dandy all over again. And even if you say you're sorry, how many times can you say you're sorry? Elchanan has this new thing that he does to me. He learned how to say sorry. So now he knows that if he pushes my hand or he smacks me on my shoe or whatever El Chanan thinks is he says he's sorry. So now he just does it. He'll go, sorry, Abba. Sorry, Abba. Sorry, Abba. Now, he's testing his limits. He's trying to figure things out in the world, but it's comical because in his head, I've taught him that you can do something to somebody else, and as long as you say it's sorry, it's okay, right? But how many times can you do that to that person before they never want to talk to you again?
Well, not when it's conscious.
Very good. So, obviously, he's a 2-year-old. So, by the way, somebody recently was offended by my son. Then he came to the door and he said hello to everybody except for them. That's as I'm sitting here in my chair. And I'm saying, he's 2 years old. You're I don't want to say what age you are. How, a 2-year-old gets offended from a 2-year-old.
How did you
A
know they were
50-year-old
offended?
doesn't.
They told you?
They came to tell me like, what? Your son doesn't like me anymore. What did you do? So, but it's listen, you
Was he
should know.
joking? Were they joking?
No, they were not joking. Sitting in this chair, or in my chair as a rabbi, you meet all kinds of people with all kinds of stories and all kinds of issues. And this is another person that I love dearly, but it's just they come along with their own thing. Do you want to get offended for me? Fine. But for my baby, it's
an immaturity.
okay. Or maybe they really feel they're on the same intellectual level as my child. It could be. That was a different problem. Why am I telling you this? We're in a relationship with somebody else. We can say, I'm sorry. At the end of the day,
How many times can you say
you
it?
hit the right place too many times. There's going to be a
That's
bruise. The person gets a bruise. They're going to break a bone. Things hurt. They say, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah.
A rabbi say that quite to the contrary. God forbid, we're not suggesting anybody breaks anybody's bones. Bones can heal. You put a cast on, bruises go away. Cuts can have Neospar and some band-aids.
Right.
Words, though, there is no healing process
No.
for words. You can't, even if a person really made it up to you, you still sometimes lingering in the back of your mind, I remember when that
You
person...
can't take it back.
You can't take it back. That's the truth. Words
That's why you
last
shouldn't,
forever.
when you're angry with somebody, you should never ever spit out the words. You should just count to 10 and walk away.
You know,
It's easy to say.
it's interesting. Wait,
Yeah,
but you
it
should know
is.
what's interesting. How parents once...
You have to bite your tongue.
Our parents once came into the class and said, today I gave crazy marriage advice. Let's hear. He said there was a guy, and he came to me with his wife. It was Shabbat afternoon, they got in a fight, and he unleashed at her. He was screaming at her and screaming at her. And when her parents said, how can you say such things to your wife? He said, well, my other option was I was going to break all the dishes in the house. So her parents said, well, I'm going to tell you that if I was there, I would suggest you break all the dishes in the house. Break all of them. But don't you dare say a word. Now, obviously a person can break all the dishes in the house. Probably they should sign up for anger management courses and such. We're not taking away this issue. What he was saying was, you break all the dishes, you can buy more dishes. You break a window, you could replace a window. You call your wife a name. You call your husband a name. You insult. This will never, ever, ever go away. Even when things are all great, 20 years from now, they're going to hear something and it's going to remind them. It's the way humans work. It's the way we work. Our words are very important. You live in a world that tells you that words are not important. You live in a world that says you can say whatever you want. As long as I didn't hurt them, it's okay. I can say it the way it is. I can say whatever I want about other people. But as long as I don't actually put this into action, you should know that words are the beginning of all the destruction in the world.
So you say there's no tshuva for it?
I'm not saying there's no tshuva. There is tshuva, but sometimes tshuva still, when you write on a piece of paper, you erase it, so you have a blank paper. But you have a blank paper with a little bit of a worn out spot on it, and you write again on it, and you erase it again. At a certain point, you're going to make a hole in the paper. So will it still be blank? It will be blank. You got rid of the words that you wrote, but there's a hole in the paper. I'm not taking away the ability to make up. What I'm saying is that your words, the way you speak, the way you treat another person, is much, much more severe than you think it is.
Yeah. But again, if you do it unconsciously and then you are conscious that you're going to hurt the other person and you can change the words, then that's probably the tshuva, and then it
You
can
can
be...
never change words. Once words have been spoken,
No,
they're
yeah,
out.
yeah. Of course.
And this is a lesson for the world that we're in right now. I will not. I refuse, and I ask you not to bring anything up. I don't speak politics. It's not my place. But I'm a rabbi, and I speak Judaism. And I can tell you that the world that we live in has deteriorated rapidly. And especially in the place of treating other people and speaking about other people. Steps that we thought we made into the future, we've taken backwards. And I don't blame it all on politics, not entirely. But you shall know that the effects of it are felt already. And if you don't want to believe me, that's okay. I can tell you that the last year, my experiences walking to the synagogue on Governor Drive have gotten worse, not better. It used to be that many people would say good morning to me, many people would say how are you doing, and I recognize the people that I walk by every single Saturday. But to be fair, if you look at my skin color, and sometimes I'm wearing a robe and my wife wears a turban on her head, and your uneducated individual doesn't know that Jews might dress like that, and rather might confuse me with somebody else.
I think you're a Muslim.
And I have to let you know that for the very, if not for the sake of taking care of yourself, you can hate anybody in the world. But the moment you allow a world to hate, you are just as susceptible to the hate as anybody else, and you are just as vulnerable to their hate as anybody else. And as a people, we must stand up and remind ourselves that words have always been the precursor to any destruction that we've ever been involved in. Any time that anybody has ever hurt the Jewish people, it has always been forewarned by words, by lowering our status as people, as human beings. And it's the reason why the Jewish community, even in times where it wasn't so popular, stood up for other minorities and other groups of people, even with people that eventually might have harmed us as a community. But we did it because the other price is too high to pay. We've been on the other side of that coin, we've been on the other side of that table. And I'm just asking, I don't care about politics. I really don't. I have no
You should.
Well, I don't.
Because that's one place to
and-
stand up and get things to change.
And I'll tell you that as a people, we have to
Sorry.
make sure that the things that we say in our homes, the things we say to each other, the way we treat other people on the street, the way we treat people that are different than us, it changes society. It changes the world. If we put out the goodness into the world, that goodness will come along with it. And if God forbid we're quiet while other things happen, we'll be there to pay the price like everybody else will. And B'ezras Hashem, I'm hoping for good outcomes. I'm hoping for goodness, B'ezras Hashem. And I trust that if there's a group in the world of people that are good people, that know what is good and speak properly and care about other people's feelings, it is a group that we have right here. So thank you for learning with me, B'ezras Hashem. We'll continue next week.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for a wonderful class.
Thank you very much.